Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing port. His 6 arms moved gracefully across the control panels, each appendage working with the precision that had made the Zenthari Empire the backbone of the Galactic Council's military force. For 300 years he had kept peace in this sector of space. The bridge around him hummed with quiet efficiency. Officers from 12 different species worked side by side, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses. This diversity was the pride of the Galactic Council. 1,000 worlds, 100 species, all united under one set of laws. Admiral, called his communications officer, a tall Viridian with crystalline skin that reflected the bridge lights. We have received the final response from the human colony on Kepler 442b. Kethavar's main eyes focused on the officer, while his secondary eyes continued monitoring the tactical displays. The humans had been given the standard 72-hour notice to evacuate their illegal settlement. It was a routine matter. New species always tested the boundaries when they first encountered galactic law. Display their response, Kethavar ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female in a simple blue uniform. Her species was unremarkable by galactic standards. Bipedal, single-headed with only 2 arms and 2 eyes. They looked fragile compared to most Council species. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Authority, the human said. Her voice was steady, showing no fear. Your ultimatum is rejected. We have legal claim to this system under the Colonial Rights Act of 2387. We will not abandon our people. Kethavar's 4 mandibles clicked together in what other species recognized as amusement. Every new species said something similar when they first encountered Council authority. They learned quickly enough. She speaks of laws, said Commander Thex, his tactical officer. The insectoid Thex had served under Kethavar for 50 years. Should we inform her that galactic law supersedes any primitive legal system? No need, Kethavar replied. Send the standard response. Inform them they have violated Council Space Treaty 445C by establishing an unauthorized colony in disputed territory. They have 24 hours to begin evacuation, or we will remove them. The message was transmitted on all frequencies. Kethavar expected immediate compliance. The humans had no military presence in the system beyond a small research station. Their technology was centuries behind Council standards. They still used chemical rockets and crude kinetic weapons. Some species took longer to accept reality than others, but they all accepted it eventually. Admiral, the sensor operator called out. She was a young Ketherian, her blue scales still bright with youth. I'm detecting increased activity around the human station. Evacuation preparations, no doubt, Kethavar said. Monitor their progress. But as the hours passed, something strange became apparent. The humans were not loading evacuation ships. Instead, they seemed to be removing equipment from their station and sending it down to the planet's surface. More concerning, they had activated some kind of transmission array that was broadcasting signals toward the edge of the system. What are they transmitting? Kethavar asked. Unknown, Admiral, replied the communications officer. The signals are heavily encrypted and directed toward empty space. Our computers cannot break the encryption. Kethavar's mandibles clicked faster. In 3 centuries of peacekeeping, he had never encountered a species that maintained such advanced communications security while using primitive weapons technology. It was like meeting a warrior who carried a stone axe but wore armor made from energy fields. Perhaps they are calling for reinforcements, suggested Commander Thex. From where? Kethavar examined the tactical display. Our long-range sensors show no human ships within 50 light-years. Their fastest vessels would take months to reach this system. The 24-hour deadline came and went. The human colony remained on the planet's surface, but their orbital station had gone dark. No life signs, no energy readings, nothing but an automated beacon transmitting on standard emergency frequencies. Shall we investigate the station? Asked Thex. Kethavar considered this. Standard procedure was to board abandoned installations to ensure they posed no threat. But something about the situation made his combat instincts twitch. The humans had been too calm, too confident for a species facing overwhelming force. Send a probe first, he decided. The probe approached the human station slowly, its sensors recording everything. The station appeared completely abandoned. All the humans had evacuated to the planet below, leaving behind only empty corridors and powered-down equipment. The probe's investigation took 3 hours and found nothing threatening. Board the station, Kethvar ordered. Full security team. The boarding party found exactly what the probe had reported, an empty research facility with signs of hasty but organized evacuation. In the main communication center, they found a single active terminal displaying a message in Galactic Standard. Admiral, the team leader reported. You need to hear this. The message was simple, displayed in text rather than audio. It read, To Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet, you wanted to meet humanity. We heard your message. We are coming. The coordinates for our home system are attached. We'll be waiting. Below the message was a complete star chart showing the route to something called Sol System, deep in what the Council had classified as unexplored space. Kethvar stared at the message for a long time. In all his years of peacekeeping, no species had ever responded to Council authority with an invitation to visit their home world. The implications were disturbing. Either the humans were completely insane, or they possessed capabilities that Council intelligence had completely failed to detect. Sir, called the sensor operator, I'm reading energy spikes from the planet's surface. The humans are activating something big. Weapons? Asked Thex, his hands moving to the tactical controls. No, sir. It appears to be a communications array, much larger than anything we detected before. They're broadcasting toward the coordinates they gave us. Kethavar's primary arms drummed against his command chair. The humans were talking to their homeworld, but the message would take years to travel even at faster than light speeds. Unless, analysis of their transmission technology, he ordered. The science officer, a floating gas cloud being from the ethereal collective, pulsed several colors before responding. Admiral, their transmission array is using principles we don't recognize. The signal appears to be traveling much faster than our own communications technology allows. How much faster? Impossible to determine without more data. But if their calculations are correct, the message could reach their destination in weeks rather than years. The bridge fell silent except for the background hum of ship systems. Kethvar had encountered thousands of species during his career. He knew the signs of primitive technology, advanced technology, and everything in between. What he was seeing from the humans made no sense. They had faster-than-light communications that surpassed Council technology, but they still used chemical rockets for space travel. Admiral, the communications officer interrupted his thoughts. We're receiving a transmission from Council Command. They want our status report. Kethvar looked at the empty human station on his main screen, then at the readings from their massive communications array on the planet below. How did he explain to Council Command that a primitive species had just invited the entire Galactic Council to visit their home system? Tell them the situation is developing, he said finally. Request additional intelligence on human capabilities, and ask them to prepare a diplomatic contact team. He didn't add his growing suspicion that they were going to need more than diplomats before this was over. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the communications center of Research Station Omega, watching the alien fleet through the observation dome. 47 ships hung in space like deadly insects, their hulls gleaming with energy fields and weapon ports. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built, and together they represented enough firepower to reduce a continent to ash. Captain, said Lieutenant Rodriguez from his position at the communications console, they're broadcasting on all frequencies again. Same message as before. Sarah nodded but didn't take her eyes off the alien fleet. The message had been clear enough the first time. Submit to galactic law, abandon the colony, accept Council authority, standard terms for a species that had never lost a war. Any word from Earth? She asked. Quantum burst transmission received 4 hours ago. Rodriguez replied. Admiral Torres confirms receipt of our intelligence package. Project Retribution has been approved for immediate implementation. Sarah felt a cold smile cross her face. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had stumbled into space with chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. They had no idea what humanity was capable of when properly motivated. Begin final evacuation procedures, she ordered. All research data, all equipment, everything goes down to the surface or back to Earth. I want this station empty in 12 hours. Ma'am, called Ensign Park from the sensor station. The alien fleet is moving into attack formation. They're powering up weapons. Let them, Sarah said. Communications open a channel to their flagship. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of the alien command ship. The creature that appeared was unlike anything in Earth's biology textbooks. 6 arms, 4 eyes, and mandibles that clicked together when it spoke. Despite its alien appearance, Sarah could read the confidence in its posture. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet," the alien said through the translation software. "You have violated numerous Council regulations. Surrender immediately and prepare for transportation to a Council detention facility." "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Authority," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "I'm transmitting our legal documentation now. This system was claimed under the Colonial Rights Act of 2387, filed with the appropriate Earth authorities. We have every right to be here." The alien's mandibles clicked faster. "Your primitive legal system has no authority in Council space. You will comply with galactic law or face the consequences." Sarah had been waiting for this moment since the first alien ship had appeared in their system 3 days ago. "Admiral Kethvar, let me make something clear. We know exactly who you are and what you're capable of. We've been monitoring galactic communications for 15 years. We know about your council, your laws, and your methods." She paused, letting that sink in. The alien's 4 eyes focused on her with new attention. "We also know that you've never encountered a species like humanity before. You're used to dealing with civilizations that developed space travel through peaceful means, species that see war as something to be avoided. We're different. You threaten the Galactic Council?" Kethvar asked, his voice carrying what the translation software marked as amusement. "I'm not threatening anyone," Sarah said. "I'm simply informing you that your intelligence about humanity is incomplete. You see our chemical rockets and assume we're primitive. You see our kinetic weapons and think we're backward. You're making the same mistake that many others have made when they underestimated humans." She gestured to Lieutenant Rodriguez, who began uploading a data package to the alien ship. "I'm sending you some historical information," Sarah continued. "Nothing classified, just publicly available records. I suggest you review them carefully before you decide how to proceed." "Captain Chen," Kethvar said, his mandibles slowing their clicking. "Whatever your species has accomplished on your homeworld is irrelevant. You face the combined military might of 1,000 worlds. Surrender now and avoid unnecessary bloodshed." Sarah's expression didn't change. "Admiral, humanity didn't reach the stars because we're peaceful. We reached the stars because we're survivors. We've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other, and we've gotten very good at it. The only reason we stopped was because we finally had bigger targets." She could see uncertainty creeping into the alien commander's posture. "Good. Let him think about what that meant. You have 47 ships," Sarah continued. "Each one represents centuries of galactic cooperation and peaceful development. Beautiful vessels, really. It would be a shame to see them destroyed." "You have no military vessels in this system," Kethvar pointed out. "No," Sarah agreed. "We don't. But you made one critical error, Admiral. You gave us 3 days to prepare and you told us exactly where to find you." She nodded to Rodriguez again. The communications array below them on the planet began powering up, drawing energy from the fusion reactors they had been secretly installing for the past month. "What are you doing?" Kethvar demanded. "Calling home," Sarah said simply. "You see, Admiral, humanity has a policy about dealing with threats. We don't negotiate from a position of weakness. We don't surrender, and we don't forgive attacks on our people." The quantum communication array reached full power, sending a signal toward Earth at speeds that defied galactic understanding of physics. The message was simple. Humanity was at war. "I'm transmitting coordinates for our Sol system," Sarah said. "You wanted to meet humanity, Admiral. Now you'll get your chance. We'll be waiting for you." She could see Kethvar's tactical officers running scans, trying to understand the technology they were witnessing. Good luck with that, Sarah thought. Humanity had spent the last 50 years developing technology based on theoretical physics that most species considered impossible. "Captain," Kethvar said, his voice losing its casual confidence. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Sarah replied. "I'm telling you that humanity is coming to have a conversation with your Galactic Council. But that conversation will happen on our terms in our space when we're ready for it." She gestured to her crew, who began the final shutdown procedures for the station. "You have a choice, Admiral. You can stay here and wait for us to return. Or you can go back to your council and explain that you've just made first contact with a species that doesn't recognize your authority. Either way, this situation has escalated beyond your ability to resolve with 47 ships. The transmission ended. Sarah watched through the dome as the alien fleet adjusted their formation, confusion evident in their movements. They had expected submission or desperate resistance. Instead, they had received an invitation to war from a species they didn't understand. "Final evacuation shuttle is loaded, Captain," Rodriguez reported. "Station is ready for abandonment." Sarah took one last look at the alien fleet. They were powerful, representing the military might of 1,000 worlds. But they had never faced humanity at war. They had never seen what humans could accomplish when they decided that survival required the complete destruction of their enemies. "Let's go," she said. "Earth is waiting for our report." As their shuttle departed for the planet below, Sarah felt a grim satisfaction. The aliens thought they were fighting another primitive species that would fold under pressure. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping in the darkness between stars, waiting for a worthy opponent. Project Retribution was about to show the galaxy what happened when you threaten the children of Earth. 18 months had passed since the incident at Kepler 442b, and Admiral Kethvar stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council High Command. The Great Chamber housed representatives from over 200 species, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien biology under the soft lighting. But today, the usual harmony was replaced by nervous tension. "Report, Admiral," commanded High Counselor Vexai, the ancient ethereal whose consciousness had guided council policy for 3 millennia. Kethvar activated the holographic display, showing the border region between council space and the area the humans called Sol System. "Honored counselors, the situation has developed beyond our initial projections." The display zoomed in on the human system, but instead of detailed scans, it showed only a gray sphere of static. "For the past 18 months, we have been unable to penetrate the electromagnetic interference surrounding the Sol system," Kethvar continued. "Our long-range sensors detect massive industrial activity, but the nature of that activity remains unknown." A ripple of concern passed through the chamber. Counselor Thys, representing the warlike Krex Empire, leaned forward on her 6 legs. "You mean to tell us that a primitive species has developed jamming technology superior to our own?" "The interference appears to be a side effect of their industrial processes rather than deliberate jamming," Kethvar explained. "Our science teams believe they are engaged in large-scale manufacturing operations involving antimatter and exotic matter manipulation." The chamber erupted in surprised clicks, whistles, and electronic pulses. Antimatter was heavily regulated in council space. No species was permitted to produce it in quantities large enough to create such widespread interference. "What do our intelligence networks report?" asked Counselor Rethan of the Surveyor Collective. Kethvar's mandibles clicked nervously. "That is, concerning Honored Counselor, we have intercepted fragments of human communications, but they are heavily encrypted. What we have been able to decode speaks of something called Project Retribution." He activated another holographic display showing communication intercepts. The alien text scrolled past as the translation systems worked. References to final construction phases, weapons testing complete, and deployment countdown initiated. Kethvar read. "Most disturbing is a repeated phrase, 'Show them what we learned from ourselves.'" High Counselor Vexai's ethereal form pulsed a deep blue, indicating deep thought. "Have they responded to our diplomatic overtures?" "Every communication attempt has been met with the same response," Kethvar said. "They acknowledge our messages and inform us that diplomatic contact will occur when humanity is ready, at a time and place of their choosing." The chamber fell silent. In the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council, no species had ever dictated the terms of first contact. The very concept violated every principle of galactic law. "What is the status of our forces in the disputed system?" asked Counselor Thys. "I have fortified Kepler 442b with ships from 7 member species," Kethvar reported. 112 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts and the flagship Eternal Harmony. Enough firepower to reduce a small moon to asteroids. "And you believe this will be sufficient to handle whatever the humans are planning?" Kethvar hesitated. During his long career, he had learned to trust his instincts, and those instincts were screaming warnings. "Honored counselors, I must express my concerns about the human response to our initial contact." "Explain," commanded Vexai. "No," species in council records has ever reacted to overwhelming force with such confidence. They showed no fear, no desperation, no attempt to negotiate. Instead, they issued what can only be described as a challenge. Kethvar activated another display, showing Captain Chen's final transmission. Note her precise knowledge of our fleet composition, our capabilities, and our standard procedures. This suggests long-term observation and intelligence gathering. You're suggesting they have been watching us? Theiss asked. For at least 15 years, according to their own statements. They know who we are, what we're capable of, and they still chose confrontation over submission. The implications sank in slowly. If the humans had been observing galactic civilization for over a decade, they had seen council military operations, diplomatic protocols, and technological capabilities. They knew exactly what they were challenging. There's more, Kethvar continued. Our xenobiology teams have completed their analysis of human historical records. The data Captain Chen provided, it paints a disturbing picture. The display changed to show images from human history, battles, weapons, destruction on a scale that made the assembled aliens uncomfortable. The Council had seen warfare before, but human conflict was different. It was total, uncompromising, and terrifyingly efficient. They have fought continuously for 10,000 years, Kethvar explained. Not the ritualized conflicts we know, but wars of complete extermination. They have developed weapons specifically designed to kill large numbers of their own species quickly and efficiently. The chamber was silent as the aliens absorbed this information. Most Council species had developed space travel through cooperation and peaceful exploration. The idea of a species that had reached the stars through constant warfare was alien to their understanding. Furthermore, Kethvar continued, human industrial capacity exceeds our models. They have a single planet, but their manufacturing output rivals entire star systems. They appear capable of total societal mobilization for war production. High Counselor Vexai pulsed a warning red. Are you suggesting that humanity poses a genuine threat to Council authority? I'm suggesting that we may have misunderstood what we're dealing with, Kethvar replied carefully. Every precedent we have for first contact involves species that develop technology for exploration and peaceful purposes. Humanity developed technology for warfare. Counselor Rethan's crystalline form chimed with concern. What do you recommend? Kethvar had been dreading this question. Honored counselors, I recommend we attempt peaceful resolution through negotiation. Offer them recognition as a sovereign species with limited territorial rights. Absolutely not, Theiss declared, her claws scraping against her seat. The Council does not negotiate with primitives who refuse to acknowledge galactic law. With respect, Counselor Theiss, they may not be as primitive as we assumed. They use chemical rockets and kinetic weapons, Theiss replied dismissively. Yes, Kethvar agreed. But consider this. They have faster-than-light communications superior to our own, industrial capacity that exceeds Council standards, and jamming technology we cannot penetrate. What if their kinetic weapons and chemical rockets are not signs of primitive technology, but of preference? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If humanity had chosen to develop certain technologies over others, it implied a level of sophistication that challenged every assumption the Council had made. You're suggesting they deliberately chose kinetic weapons over energy weapons? Vexai asked. I'm suggesting that a species which has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare might have very good reasons for their technological choices. The chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors demanded immediate military action to demonstrate Council authority. Others called for caution and further intelligence gathering. A few suggested that humanity might be bluffing, using psychological warfare to appear more dangerous than they actually were. But Kethvar had seen the confidence in Captain Chen's eyes, had watched her calmly invite the entire Galactic Council to war. That was not the behavior of a species that was bluffing. Honored counselors, he said when the debate died down, whatever we decide, we should decide quickly. Our intelligence suggests that Project Retribution is nearing completion. Soon we will discover exactly what humanity has been building in the darkness of their home system. As the Council continued to debate, Kethvar's thoughts turned to his fleet waiting in the Kepler system. 112 ships crewed by beings who had never seen real warfare, facing an enemy that had been perfecting it for millennia. He wondered if it would be enough. The first sign that something was wrong came from Ensign Zetke, at the gravimetric sensor station aboard the flagship Eternal Harmony. The young Catherian scales had turned from blue to deep purple with stress as she stared at readings that made no sense. "Admiral Kethvar," she called out, her voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting a massive gravitational anomaly approaching from the outer system." Kethvar moved to her station, his 6 arms working the controls with practiced efficiency. Around them, the bridge of the Eternal Harmony hummed with activity as 112 ships of the combined Council fleet maintained their defensive formation around Kepler 442b. "Clarify, massive," Kethvar ordered. "Sir, the object has the gravitational signature of a small moon, mass approximately 40 billion tons, but it's moving at significant sublight velocity and appears to be under intelligent control." The bridge fell silent except for the background hum of ship systems. Commander Thex, Kethvar's tactical officer, looked up from his console with all 4 of his compound eyes wide. "Admiral, that's impossible. No ship has ever been built with that kind of mass. The energy requirements alone would exceed the power output of most star systems. Show me the tactical display," Kethvar commanded. The main screen lit up with a 3-dimensional representation of the system. The Council fleet formed a defensive sphere around the 4th planet, their energy signatures glowing blue and green. But approaching from the outer darkness was something that defied classification. The gravitational readings were consistent with a large asteroid, but the trajectory was too precise, too controlled. "Time to intercept?" Kethvar asked. "At current velocity, approximately 47 minutes," reported the navigation officer. "Attempt to hail the object." "Admiral," called the communications officer, a tall Viridian whose crystalline skin was flickering with nervous energy. "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the approaching object." On screen, the display changed to show a human male in a dark blue uniform. He appeared to be in his 50s with gray hair and the kind of calm confidence that came from long experience with command. Behind him, Kethvar could see what appeared to be a massive bridge filled with humans working at stations that seemed to extend into the distance. "Greetings, Admiral Kethvar," the human said. "This is Admiral Marcus Torres of the Terran Defense Force aboard the TDS Nemesis. I trust our arrival hasn't caused too much concern." Kethvar's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Admiral Torres, you are approaching a secured Council military zone with an unidentified vessel. Identify yourself and state your intentions," Torres smiled. And something about that expression made every survival instinct. Kethvar had developed over 3 centuries of military service start screaming warnings. "I believe my intentions were made clear 18 months ago by Captain Chen," Torres replied. "We're here to discuss galactic diplomacy, but those discussions will be conducted on humanity's terms. Admiral Torres, you are outnumbered more than 100 to 1. I strongly advise you to reconsider your approach." "Admiral Kethvar," Torres said, his voice remaining perfectly calm, "you seem to be operating under the assumption that this is a military engagement. It's not. This is a demonstration." On the sensor displays, the approaching object began to change. What had appeared as a single massive signature started to resolve into something that made the bridge crew gasp in collective shock. "Admiral," Ensign Zetke whispered, "it's decloaking." The TDS Nemesis emerged from stealth like a mountain rising from the sea. 5 kilometers long and nearly 2 kilometers wide, it was not a ship by any galactic definition, it was a mobile fortress. Its hull was dark and scarred, pitted with impact craters and burn marks that spoke of passage through asteroid fields at combat velocity. But it was the weapons that made the Council officers stare in horror. Along the ship's flanks, massive railgun batteries swiveled toward the alien fleet. Each barrel was the size of a skyscraper, designed to accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Between them, missile ports opened like hungry mouths, revealing launch tubes that could hold warheads larger than most Council fighter craft. "Impossible," Commander Thex breathed. The power requirements for those weapon systems would require the energy output of a star. As if responding to his comment, the Nemesis lit up its fusion drives. 3 massive torches at the ship's stern ignited with the brilliance of artificial suns, their light washing over the Council fleet and revealing the true scale of what they faced. "Admiral Kethvar," Torres continued, his image still calm on the main screen, "I'm going to give you 30 seconds to begin emergency evacuation procedures for your fleet. This is not a request for surrender. This is advance warning of imminent weapons testing. Admiral Torres, Kethavar said, fighting to keep his voice steady. I have over 100 ships and enough firepower to reduce a planet to rubble. Are you certain you want to proceed with this course of action? Torres' expression didn't change. Admiral, 18 months ago, one of your officers asked Captain Chen what humanity could possibly do against the combined might of 1,000 worlds. Today you get your answer. Behind Torres, human officers worked with mechanical precision at their stations. Kethavar could see tactical displays showing targeting solutions for every ship in the Council fleet, threat assessments being updated in real time, weapon systems cycling through final preparation sequences. You have 30 seconds, Torres repeated. I suggest you use them wisely. Kethavar looked around his bridge at officers from a dozen species, all staring at him with expressions of barely controlled panic. In 3 centuries of military service, he had never faced anything like this. The Nemesis was not just larger than any ship ever built. It represented a completely different philosophy of warfare. Council ships were designed for precise, surgical operations. They used energy weapons that could disable rather than destroy, allowing for the capture and rehabilitation of hostile forces. The Nemesis was designed for total annihilation. Its weapons existed for one purpose: to reduce enemy vessels to their component atoms as quickly and efficiently as possible. Sir, Commander Thex said quietly. What are your orders? Kethavar stared at the human ship on his tactical display. Every instinct told him to fight, to demonstrate Council superiority, to show this upstart species the futility of challenging galactic order. But another part of his mind, the part that had kept him alive through 3 centuries of military service, was calculating odds and finding them unacceptable. The 30 seconds were almost up. All ships, Kethavar said finally, his voice carrying across the fleet communications, begin emergency withdrawal to minimum safe distance. This is not a retreat, this is tactical repositioning. Sir? Thex asked. Do it now, Kethavar ordered. As the Council fleet began moving away from the planet, Admiral Torres nodded approvingly on the main screen. A wise decision, Admiral Kethavar. Now allow me to demonstrate why humanity chose kinetic weapons over energy beams. The Nemesis rotated slightly, bringing its main batteries to bear on a large asteroid in the system's outer belt. The railguns fired in sequence, their projectiles invisible except for the brief flares of accelerated particles. The asteroid, roughly 2 kilometers in diameter, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not shattered. Atomized by the kinetic impact of projectiles moving at 17% of light speed. Admiral Torres, Kethavar said, his voice barely steady. What do you want? Torres smiled again, and this time Kethavar understood what he was seeing. It was the expression of a predator that had found worthy prey. I want to talk, Admiral, but that conversation is going to happen in Sol System, with representatives of the entire Galactic Council, under terms that humanity will dictate. The transmission ended, leaving the Council fleet alone with the realization that everything they thought they knew about warfare had just become obsolete. The Battle of Kepler 442b lasted exactly 17 minutes and 43 seconds. Admiral Kethavar would remember every moment for the rest of his long life, though he would rarely speak of it to others. Some experiences were too terrible to share, even among warriors. It began when Commander Thex, despite all orders to maintain distance, brought his squadron of 12 fast attack ships into weapons range of the TDS Nemesis. The young Krex officer had been raised in a warrior culture that valued honor above survival, and the sight of his entire fleet retreating from a single enemy vessel had triggered responses deeper than military discipline. For the glory of the Council, Thex transmitted as his ships opened fire with their most powerful energy weapons. The beam struck the Nemesis along its starboard hull, brilliant streams of coherent energy that should have overloaded any defensive system ever devised. Instead, they simply disappeared into the human ship's armor like water soaking into sand. Whatever materials the humans had used to build their vessel, they absorbed directed energy weapons as if they were designed specifically for that purpose. Admiral Torres' response was immediate and educational. The Nemesis didn't turn to face the attacking ships. It didn't maneuver for optimal firing solutions. The massive railgun batteries simply swiveled in their mounts and fired 12 times in rapid succession. Kethavar watched through his ship's sensors as 12 projectiles, each moving at a significant fraction of light speed, found their targets with mathematical precision. The Council ships didn't explode, they ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next they were expanding clouds of superheated plasma and scattered atoms. All ships stand down. Cathvar broadcast immediately. Cease all hostile actions. But the demonstration was not over. The Nemesis began a slow, deliberate approach toward the main Council fleet, and as it moved, its weapons systematically engaged every military target within range. Not ships. Admiral Torres was being careful to avoid unnecessary casualties, but military installations, defensive platforms, and automated weapons systems. Each shot was a lesson in the application of kinetic force. Each target was chosen to demonstrate a specific capability. Orbital defense platforms were reduced to scrap metal. Underground bunkers were collapsed by projectiles that penetrated deep into the planet's crust before detonating. Shielded command centers were opened like tin cans by rounds that passed through energy barriers as if they didn't exist. Admiral, called Ensign Zetke, her voice shaking, I'm detecting multiple energy spikes from the human vessel. They're preparing to fire the main battery. Cathvar looked at his tactical display and felt something cold settle in his chest. The main battery consisted of 8 massive railguns mounted along the ship's spine, each one larger than the weapons that had just demonstrated their effectiveness against Thex's squadron. Target? He asked. The moon, sir. They're targeting the system's primary moon. On the main screen, Admiral Torres reappeared. Behind him, Cathvar could see human officers working with calm efficiency, as if the systematic destruction of Council military assets was just another day's work. Admiral Cathvar, Torres said, what you're about to witness is not a threat. It's simply information. We want to make sure you understand exactly what you're dealing with when you return to your Council. The Nemesis fired its main battery. 8 projectiles, each one accelerated to 21% of light speed, struck the moon in a precise pattern across its equator. The celestial body, roughly 800 kilometers in diameter, held together for exactly 3.7 seconds after impact. Then the gravitational bonds that had held it together for billions of years failed all at once. The moon came apart like a ball of sand struck by a hammer. But this was not random destruction. The humans had calculated the exact placement of their shots to ensure that the debris field would not threaten the inhabited planet below. Even in demonstration of overwhelming force, they showed precise control. 17 minutes, Admiral Torres announced as the last pieces of moon tumbled through space. That's how long it took to neutralize your entire defensive fleet and remove a significant gravitational body from this system. And Admiral Cathvar, the Nemesis is not alone. As if summoned by his words, new contacts began appearing on the Council sensors. One by one, massive human ships decloaked throughout the system, not as large as the Nemesis, but each one clearly built to the same terrifying specifications. We have 47 ships in this system alone, Torres continued. Each one represents humanity's answer to a simple question. What do you build when your species has spent 10,000 years learning how to kill itself efficiently? Cathvar counted the signatures appearing on his screens. 47 human warships, each one capable of reducing his entire fleet to atomic particles. And according to Torres, these were just the ships in one system. What do you want? Cathvar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. We want what we've always wanted, Admiral. Respect for human sovereignty and recognition of our territorial claims. The difference is that now we're in a position to negotiate from strength rather than weakness. Torres gestured to someone off-screen, and new information began flowing to the Council ships. Star charts showing human territorial claims, defense agreements with other species the Council had never heard of, and most disturbing of all, evidence of human colonies throughout what the Council had considered empty space. You've been watching us for 15 years, Cathvar said. Understanding beginning to dawn. We've been preparing, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that survival requires constant vigilance and overwhelming response to existential threats. When we discovered we weren't alone in the galaxy, we had to make a choice, submit to alien authority, or demonstrate why that was a poor idea. The transmission paused as Torres received a report from one of his officers. When he looked back at the screen, his expression had grown colder. Admiral Cathvar, my communications officer informs me that elements of your Council fleet have been transmitting our tactical capabilities back to your headquarters. I want to make something very clear. We're not trying to hide our capabilities from your leadership. We want them to know exactly what they're dealing with. A new set of images appeared on the council screens. These showed human shipyards in the Sol system, massive construction facilities that dwarfed anything in council space. Ships under construction that made the Nemesis look small, weapons testing ranges where artificial moons were created just to be destroyed by experimental armaments. This is what humanity has been building while your council debated our fate, Torres said. We've mobilized our entire civilization for war production. Every factory, every shipyard, every scientific institution has been focused on a single goal, ensuring that humanity never again faces extinction at the hands of others. Kethvar stared at the images of human industrial capacity. The scale was incomprehensible. A single planet had outproduced the manufacturing capabilities of entire star systems. Are you threatening the entire galaxy? He asked. No, Admiral. We're offering it a choice. The galaxy can continue as it always has, with the Council maintaining order through negotiated settlements and limited military actions. But humanity will not be subject to that order. We will govern ourselves in our own space according to our own laws. Torres stood, and Kethvar could see the full bridge of the Nemesis behind him. Hundreds of humans working at stations that extended beyond the limits of the screen, a command center designed not for exploration or peaceful contact, but for the coordination of total warfare. Return to your council, Admiral Kethvar. Tell them what you've seen here. Explain that humanity is offering them a simple arrangement, mutual recognition and non-interference. We'll stay in our space, you stay in yours, and everyone continues breathing. And if the council refuses? Torres smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Kethvar had ever seen. Not cruel or sadistic, but completely confident. The smile of someone who had already calculated all possible outcomes and found them acceptable. Admiral, humanity didn't survive 10,000 years of warfare by hoping our enemies would be reasonable. We survived by being unreasonable ourselves. If the Council wants a war with humanity, they can have one. But they should understand that we've been preparing for this possibility since the day we learned we weren't alone. The transmission ended. Around Kethvar, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence as they processed what they had just witnessed. The humans had not just defeated the Council fleet, they had demonstrated the complete obsolescence of everything the galaxy thought it knew about military power. Sir, Commander Thek said quietly from his position, what do we tell the Council? Kethvar looked at the tactical display showing 47 human warships, maintaining perfect formation around their position. Each one was a reminder that humanity had chosen cooperation over conquest, but that choice could be revoked at any moment. We tell them the truth, he said finally. We tell them that we've encountered something new in this galaxy, a species that reached the stars not through peaceful exploration, but through 10,000 years of perfecting the art of war. And we tell them that humanity has offered us a choice.